We're not into March yet, and it's unseasonably warm out here at about 72 degrees Fahrenheit today. The bees are flying, and I haven't yet checked on my Layens hives. They all look good from the entrances, but I don't know what's going on inside the boxes. So I've got a little time today. I'm going to take advantage of the warm weather and check on at least one of the colonies in Hive. This happens to be one of my strongest colonies going into winter and appears to be a strong colony coming out of winter based on the traffic at the entrance. And there's a particular reason I'm checking on this one today. There's a few things I'm looking for. One is, coming out of winter, do they have plenty of resources left? Another is, do they have brood? By this time of year, the queen should be starting to lay some brood even if we weren't seeing such warm temperatures. And then I also want to check and see if they're ahead of schedule. Are they starting to make drone brood, which could be a preparation for swarm season? And in an extreme case, do they have any queen cells? So we'll be looking for that. But because this is such a strong colony, I'm also going to be checking to see if they have any excess brood that I might be able to take a frame of brood and give to the colony that I just did a cutout. That colony doesn't seem to have a queen, at least I didn't find one, and the way the bees are acting, they don't seem to be drawn towards a queen in that colony. So if I can give that colony a frame of brood from this hive, then that should anchor the bees to that colony, help them to build up, and it may be a little early for them to make a queen, but at least it will keep the colony going until I can provide them with a queen or the resources to make one. But before we get to that, we got to get into this hive and see what's going on. As I mentioned, this colony was one of my strongest going into winter. I think I left them with like 11 frames, which is way more than I would typically leave for winter, but they had a strong population, and so when I closed them up for winter, that seemed to be about how many frames they had to cover. So what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, right at 11. So we'll see where they're at now. So this last frame had honey, and it still has honey. You can see they got good resources going on there. Next frame is also honey. No concern about that. Third frame is still heavy. Good population on there. And has some wet nectar down through there. Now those could be cells that they have opened up and are feeding from, or they could be gathering some nectar. I have a feeling they're opened up. We have some right in the middle of the honey there that's opened up. So I have a feeling that's cells that they've opened up to get to the honey. Kind of the same story there. We got some pollen in here. More honey, more open nectar cells. For those curious about what's a typical number of frames to overwinter on in a Layens hive, I have overwintered on 5 frames in several hives, and they did all right. That's about the minimum I would want to go to. But I think between 5 and 7 is probably typical. So 11 was kind of extreme. But look at the population on there. There is no lack of population in this hive. But so far all I'm seeing is resources. It's just honey, nectar, and pollen. But that's not uncommon. Very often the number of frames that the queen needs to lay on is about 6 frames, maybe 7. And that's about how much a queen can keep up with. By the time she fills up those 6 or 7 frames, the first frames that she laid in will have emerged and been ready to fill again. And the brood would typically be close to the entrance, which is right here. So it's not surprising that all they have is honey over here. So we'll see if we get into some brood as we get closer to the entrance. And look at that. We already have a big section of capped brood right there. The little pollen, a little bit of nectar intermingled. Don't know if there's any open brood here. I'll take a look and see. I've got more capped brood on the back side of this. Don't know if you can see that well through the bees, but got open or capped brood there. I do see some larvae in there. Not a lot yet, but there's basically larvae kind of surrounding, and I'm seeing eggs there. Keep my eye open for the queen here. You might also wonder what's to keep that queen from going and laying brood throughout the other frames. And sometimes nothing. Now, I have had hives where the bees obviously read the manuals and the queen laid on 6 frames, and after that they stored honey. This particular hive did not follow the book. The queen laid all the way through 10 frames in this hive. You can make a queen excluder to keep the queen on those brood frames, but what I tend to do is I'll take a full frame of honey, and the queen is unlikely to cross over that full frame of honey. So I will find the queen, move her back to the 1st or 2nd frame, and then put a full frame of honey after, say, the 6th or 7th frame, and the queen is most likely to stay on the brood side. So there we have a lot more capped brood. And this is all worker brood. Have not yet seen, well, there might be one little cell that's bumped out like a drone cell. There's a few drone cells on here, just I can see by the size, but they're not filled. This side we got quite a bit more capped brood throughout there, and one bumped out cell, that's probably a drone cell there. That looks like a drone cell. They haven't capped them yet, but they are bumped out a little bit. But not a lot of drone brood. Here you can see, for whatever reason, there's not as many bees on here, probably because it's mostly capped brood, but you can see a good section of capped brood there. And there is some larvae down in some of these cells through here. I do see a few eggs in some of these cells here. So I haven't spotted my queen yet. Sometimes I miss her. Maybe you've seen her and I haven't. I've been moving a little quick here, but have not seen her yet. One thing I've found that often helps me to find the queen is as I move a frame, I've been forgetting to do this, I don't have good light for this, but look down at the next frame. Because very often as I'm working through the hive, the bees will kind of shepherd the queen back to where I haven't gotten to yet. And so sometimes I catch her on that next frame. So here we have a little more drone brood right down through here. Got some drone cells bumped out there. Obviously have some capped brood there and some larvae. And usually on these frames, when the bees build their own comb, it's almost always a mirror image. So got some capped worker brood through there. Got some drone brood that's not yet capped down here, but not a lot. So they're not really producing drones in mass yet. And still not quite seeing the queen. But the brood production is certainly underway, as well as the propolis production. My fingers are all sticky. Just the same story, just more worker brood there. We've got larvae, got some eggs up through here. So brood in all stages going on here. They are building up very well. There you can see a little better in the absence of such a heavy population. See some of that capped brood there. And very young larvae here. I would like to spot my queen because my biggest concern about just moving a frame of brood over to that other hive is that I might accidentally move my queen. which I guess that would help the other hive, but would certainly set this one back. This is a heavy one, and characteristic of the frame on the end, it's more resources. They got nectar through there and honey, and not so much brood. And same story on this side, lots of pollen in there. Hope you can see that, all the colors of pollen right through there. And I say all the colors, it's mostly reddish and greenish. I'm not sure what that's from. A little yellow down here. And this is a hive. Everything you're seeing here, I have not opened this hive since last fall. Don't remember the exact date, but it would have been September or October. And do not feed them over winter. Do not give them pollen substitute. This is just from the resources that they had left at the end of last year. I'm going to take another look as I pass through here looking for the queen again. Not spotting her. I had a good looking population. I mentioned that if I did accidentally move that queen over to the other hive, it could benefit them. But on the other hand, if by chance I did get the queen on that cutout, even though I don't think I did, then the bees could kill the new queen if I introduce her. If they don't have a queen, they are likely to accept a new queen, but that's not a guarantee. Alright, I think I'm going to pull this frame and give it to that other hive. I'm going to try to get rid of some of these bees here. The nurse bees should be able to be adopted into the other hive pretty well, but I want to get off a lot of these bees to be as positive as I can that my queen isn't here. And I'm going to move pretty quickly here, so I won't take the camera with me. But I don't want this frame to get the brood here to get cooled down too much. Even though it's 70 degrees today, so that's not too much of a risk. But the brood still, the bees try to maintain it about 95 degrees. I don't see any queen on there anywhere. So I'll go put this in that other hive and be right back. Got that frame put into that other hive all right. That other frame is kind of contoured to match these two that it was in between. And these two don't fit together. Each one of them kind of bumps out on the corners. So let me see if I can fill in another frame here. So I got another frame here that's just kind of partial. And that looks like it'd be a good one to fill in the gap. The bees can build that down. So this is a very encouraging inspection to see how far along the bees are right now. They're not too far ahead of where I would have expected them to be. They've got good resources, they've got good brood as you saw, and enough that I was able to help out that other colony until we can get them a queen. So I'm super happy about that. My time is short today, so I probably won't get into my other Layens hives, but if this one is characteristic of what the others look like, I think it's going to be a really good spring. People often ask me about how do I feed the bees over winter? How do you add a sugar board? Where do you put the pollen patties and so on? And I think this is a good example of what can happen when you let the bees do their thing and don't take away too much of the resources that they need. And when you harvest honey, be sure to leave the bees plenty of surplus that they can get through the winter. So I hope you found this look inside of this hive interesting and informative. How are your hives doing? Let me know in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, you might also like this one that Google thinks you'll really like. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.